Let's talk reading wrap-up August 2023. Hello everyone, welcome back to A Fictional Escapist. My name is Kris, and today's video is the reading wrap-up of August 2023. Before we jump into the wrap-up today, make sure you're checking the description box down below for links to my social media and Discord should you want to come along for the ride. Now, I read a total of 9 things in August of 2023. 2 were novellas, 1 was an alpha read, which I'm going to talk about because it's very good, and if you haven't started this series already, I would highly recommend it before the 3rd book comes out, the one I had the pleasure of reading, and then we had a total of 6 novels. To get us started, we had Doctrines of Fire. This is by C.L. Jarvis, and the 2nd book for this one, The Treaties of Air, is coming out later in September. This was such a unique fantasy story. If you like dark academia vibes, if you like a bit of Sherlock Holmes in your book where you've got that mystery element, as well as some magic that literally explodes off the page, well, not literally because that would be a very dangerous book to read, but figuratively explodes off the page. What C.L. Jarvis is doing is trying to get us as excited about the 18th century as she is, from what I've heard in quotes and quips from her social media. This is following an academic rivalry turned deadly, as you can see on the front of the page here. We're following 2 professors, Dr. William Cullen and Dr. Joseph Black. I had to look at the second name there, and they bring in a student who is a little bit down on his luck, can't really afford his way to their fault, and his name is George Stevens. And they are trying to uncover why students are getting sick and eventually dying through a certain type of magic, or what they believe to be is a professor using this type of magic and experimenting on his students. It was one of the most unique fantasies that I've read before, and has actually sparked a video idea from me about talking about this unique fantasy and what makes them so unique. It uses a lot of wording and a lot of the research that was being done in that time and put it into a fantasy novel, so you do have that historical element in there as well. This is a very much a genre bender. We've got historical fiction, we've got dark academia, and we do have those fantasy elements in there. And I thought it was really, really great. If you're a fan of things like Dream of Death City by P.J. Nwosu, which also has those darker, very slow fantasy elements that build up a very dark world, you are going to enjoy this one. The next thing I read was a complete change of pace and also quite unique in that it was a humorous fantasy, and that is Stranger Back Home by E.L. Haynes. This one follows a gnome called Sparrow who has received a mysterious text message from another world asking him to come home and talk about his father's will. He believes that this has been sent to him by his brother, and then his brother turns up, and it turns out it really hasn't been sent by him. He doesn't even know what a text message is. Then this book follows Sparrow as he tries to figure out the mystery of who sent these messages and uncover a few things along the way, as well as dodge various murder attempts on his life while he's back home. It's very interesting, it's very bizarre, and it was very much a humorous fantasy book. If you are looking for a palate cleanser which is just absolute nonsense but fun, then this is going to be a good one to pick up for you. Then I had the absolute pleasure of reading Marked for the Pyre by M.T. Fontaine. You all know I've gushed about Carved Amidst the Shadows. I'm going to be gushing about this sequel. This was the follow-up to Carved Amidst the Shadows and book 2 in the Brands of Talgia series. This one picks up relatively soon after the ending of the 1st book, and we have Cayenne and Andreas who are now trying to bring together the factions of the Carved and the Marked, and going through quite a few teething issues when getting those 2 groups together. What this book does really well is open up the world and the magic and also the history behind the stewards, which was touched upon in book 1. We also get another character called Sephron, who is almost like this godlike presence throughout the story, and I thought it was such a good sequel. It was very addictive. Those last 200 pages absolutely flew by. Read the series. Talk to me about the series, because I'm not going to shut up about it. It's very likely I will reread these next year because I thought they were really, really good. The first audiobook on the list for the month of August was Legacy of the Brightwash by Crystal Matar. Now, I was putting this one off because of things like Hype Train, because I wasn't sure if Gaslamp Fantasy was going to work for me, but boy was I wrong. This was a 5-star read and a 5-star listen. The narrator did an absolutely phenomenal job, or both narrators, there were two of them. This one is following Tashaway. He is a tin man or a law enforcer, and he discovers the body of a mutilated child on the Brightwash. So this child has washed up, has a tattoo across the neck, and he's questioning who would tattoo a child. This book was very much a character study, and it was such a beautiful unraveling of things like PTSD and trauma and depression and mental health and the things that come with that. And it's very much a character-focused book. The plot of the book, which is the mystery of finding what's happening to these children, I would say is very much a secondary aspect of this story, which again surprised me why I liked it so much. The plot does come together in the last 20% or so of the book, and you start putting those pieces together. So the foreshadowing that has been done throughout the character arcs has been phenomenal. And I have to really give credit here. The writing is beautiful. It is brutal, and it's also very human. If you have not read this one yet, and you are someone like me who is a world-building driven reader first, you want good character work, look no further than this book. Every character is morally grey in some way, and we really do get to sit with those characters and delve deep into why they are the way that they are, and also how they justify their actions in the present day. And I just thought this was a wonderful, wonderful read. And, you know, if you are someone who also likes a bit of bisexual panic in your books, a little bit of spice, a little bit of heat, then you're also going to find some interesting times in Legacy of the Brightwash. Then we jump through to the two novellas, the first one being A Dagger in the Dark. This is by Tom Dunrell, who I interviewed recently here on the channel. This was a lovely little homage to the Pillars of Peace series, if you were a fan of that. This is about 70 pages. I can't go into too much detail because it's full spoilers. We follow a side character who was quite prevalent in all three books, and it was one that a lot of people wanted to know more about. So this is just like a little love letter to the series. It's a lot lighter than the books in the series because they did get progressively darker as the twists and turns happen, and you just get a little pirate adventure. That's all I'm going to say there. The second novella that I picked up was, again, one of my favorite voices that has come from 2023, or that I discovered in 2023, and that is Sistah Samurai by Tatiana Obey. This book, or this author I should say, has so much to say, and I'm so enamored by the writing. This was a humorous book. It is a love letter to all of the black women that have come before Tatiana Obey, and it just really shines through the pages. It is an incredible read. It's funny. We're following Sistah Samurai, who is this cranky older samurai, and she's busy, and we just follow her going through her day as she goes to eat lunch. She needs to make talismans with some special ink to protect wards, and she needs to get home to be able to protect her house from the demons that come out at night. And you just sort of follow her, and it's this beautiful story of family and life, and just really that, like I said, that love letter to anyone who has come before her. This was a brilliant novella. There was a part in the middle of it. Actually, I won't say it. I want you to discover it for yourself. Again, I read this in one sitting, and I thought it was wonderful. And there are some very funny moments in this book which had me laughing out loud, and then thinking I probably shouldn't have laughed at that. If you're curious at any of that, this is coming out in October, so I did have an arc for this one, and I'm hoping to interview Tatiana Obey about her works later in the year. The next one I picked up was the alpha read for one Miss H.C. Newell, and this is book 3 in the Fallen Light series, Shadows of Nyn'Dira. This book, again, I won't go too much into detail, is a book 3, so it goes into spoilers pretty quickly. What I do want to say here is H.C. Newell, if you liked Curse of the Fallen, and if you like the Forbidden Realms, this book really steps it up a notch. What H.C. Newell has done has really honed in on the skill of her writing. Any criticism that I had for the first 2 books would have been that we had a lot of fade to black moments, and that some of the more serious moments were hidden in behind the action, and book 3 does not do that at all. She has really honed in on those slower character moments. She has put in the action where it makes an impact, and the world again just expands so much in this series. If you already like this series, this book is phenomenal. If you haven't read the Fallen Light series yet, I would highly encourage you to do so. The banter and the friendships in these books are something that I've never come across in fantasy being done so well. Absolutely top tier banter, top tier friendships. And what H. Newell also does is give you friendships that aren't necessarily romantic, and there is no way for them to be romantic, or there's no subtext pushing the reader to think that they are. So if you're looking for genuine found family, genuine friendship dynamics, this series is absolutely going to be a hit for you. Next one I picked up was another audiobook. I did not plan on a second audiobook this month, so I just sort of flipped through the library and saw if I could close off any of the series that I currently have. So I did pick up Death's Beating Heart by Rob J. Hayes. This is the final installment of the War Eternal series, and it is such a sign-off to Iskara Helsene. I sometimes have a little bit of a commitment issue when it comes to finishing series, whether it be TV shows or books, and I just don't want them to end, so I refuse to acknowledge that they have ended. But I am glad that I read this final book, and I'm trying to be better at finishing series, at least until 2024. We're following Iskara and her daughters after the events of the fourth book, where they're basically trying to right the world because there's a giant rift that has happened. I'm not going to give too much more away. If you like the snarky corpse queen that is Iskara Helsene, this is a really good ending to the series. And the final thing that I read for the month, and the one that took the most time, was House of Chains by Steven Erikson. Now, it's hard for me to talk about Malazan books because there's just so much happening inside of them, and they go on forever. The thing with these books is I'm really enjoying them, but I am having to have the wiki quite close by. Roger put this series in a really good way, and it's just everyone's fighting gods, everyone's fighting each other. We've got the Malazans. In this book, we have the Malazans versus Shaik and the whirlwind thing in Raraku in the desert. It sounds insane because it feels insane as you read it. Things are starting to click. They had started to click from sort of Deadhouse Gates, Memories of Ice. There are things that are being put together, and I can certainly see that the foreshadowing is being put in place for bigger reveals later in the series, but I definitely rely on that wiki for whenever I go, hang on, who was that again? Because I'm sure there's context here that I need to go ahead and look up. So I'm having a really good time with it. I love the prose. I love some of the conversations that are coming through in these stories, but I'm still not real sure what's happening. So it's an experience. I'm wondering what's going to happen. I'm now 4 books in. I'm committed to the 10 books. Looks like I'll be finishing it up with Roger sort of mid next year if we do keep doing one every 2 months. And now having a 2-month break, that's my fault. I've got a lot of ARC reads, a lot of review copies. I am SPSFC judge this year, so I do have commitments going on in the book world, but we will get Malazan done, and maybe by the end of it, I'll know what's going on. Who knows? Those are the books that I had going on in the month of August. What was your favorite read of the month? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like the content, give it one of those. If you want to see more of it, click subscribe at your will. I will catch you in the next video. Ciao.